Hi, my name is Patricia Arbona, and my webinar is just a few days ahead. Today English is used as a lingua franca, and it is time for a change. We should redirect our teaching aims and help our students to communicate intelligibly around the world. Join us and discover how to use communicative competence effectively. Bye! See you soon.
Hi, a very good morning to everybody, and I'm delighted to participate in the webinar series organized by English Teachers in Peru, and I am grateful to Mariela Condorina's invitation. I'm going to talk about something that I'm sure all teachers are experiencing, and that's why the title of my presentation is Remote Teaching: the emotional impact on teachers' well-being. When we talk about well-being, most people associate well-being with money, income of money. However, it's not only that. We have different types of well-being, right? Now, something very important that I want to mention is that this presentation is based on a survey, on a research that I've been doing, and the sample that I have is 150 teachers from state schools surveys and 150 teachers from private schools surveys as well. And I guess that not only will we share the reality, okay, but also, and what's most important, we will see how we can get a positive, a good, a happy well-being. That's the objective of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mariela Condorina, and welcome to today's webinar. Before we get started, I like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. This is our 11th live webinar. And now you know some directions. Please, you have to consider those. Please type your questions in the comment section together with your name and place of living. The answers to your questions and comments will be replied by our guest speaker at the end of the webinar in the question time session. When finishing the webinar, we will share a link for you to have access to the exit ticket, which will be available for 45 minutes. You may send in your question at any time during the presentation. We will collect this and address them during the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. Now it's time to know our guest speaker. Please, Miss Angela, could you introduce her, please?
Yes, of course. Good evening, everybody. And today we are delighted to present Miss Patricia Laura Arbona, who is a teacher, trainer, and speaker in the field of education in both Spanish and English. She has specialized in segmental and supersegmental phonology and drama. As an independent researcher, she's exploring active learning and teaching English as a global language. And she has done experimental work in Argentina, USA, and Europe. She is the founder of Ludodrama, a group of teachers whose main concern is to improve the quality of education. So tonight's webinar is about strategies and techniques of teaching English as a lingua franca. Miss Patricia, good evening.
Good evening.
We're
Thank you
happy
very
to have
much.
you here.
I'm very pleased to be here with you all. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Can I share the screen right now?
Yes, of course. Yes, no worries. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. And the topic is learning and teaching English as a lingua franca. And let's start if you are ready. You know that today English is used internationally for purpose of communication. Well, this is no secret. But the thing is that learning and teaching English in the 21st century has been affected by this radical change of English. Today, teaching and learning English is filled with challenge, and the main reason is that today English is in a constant state of change. Sorry, everybody knows that English is no longer the property of English speakers because there are more non-native speakers than native speakers. And we should remember that linguistic change and globalization go hand in hand. There are interesting facts that have contributed to make English what it is today. And listen to this important information. 1.5 billion people around the world speak English. 96% of all the interactions in English are between non-native speakers. 80% of all the teachers in the world are non-native speakers. We are among them. And every native speaker, there are at least 5 non-native speakers. And the purity of English, that is to say the RP pronunciation, is restricted to 3% of the English people. As we see, these striking facts cannot be ignored any longer. And we should take them into account in the way we need to teach English today. It is true that in many parts of the world, English, although it is taught communicatively, there are strong traces of the traditional model, and an accent is usually followed. For example, RP pronunciation or General American. And in this way, the students are learning the language in a fantasy land because they are not exposed to the reality of English. That is, they do not have the chance to listen to these varieties that are present if they listen to people using the language, the English language, whose mother tongue is not English. So there are interesting questions that we should ask right now. But before asking the questions, we need to take into account that in order to teach English in this new way, intelligibility has become very important. It has been always important, but today is more than ever. We need our students to speak intelligibly. And for this purpose, they need to develop communicative competence. That is to say, the ability to understand and be understood. And they should also take into account the speech processes and the speech elements that are present when we are having a conversation in order to get the meaning. Remember that pronunciation is not just a sequence of phonemes, it's much more than that. Now, I want to ask you some questions about this. Please answer in your chat box. The first question is, do you expect your students to speak accurately or fluently? Just write the letter A or the letter F. And then let me know. Probably Mariela may tell me because I cannot see the chat box. Or here, let me see. If I can see it. Okay, I can see that. Yes. Well, some accurately, some fluently. Good. Well, right. Well, then we're going to discuss this. Number 2, should the emphasis be placed on native-like speech production or comprehension? So write the letter S or the letter C. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Which of the 4 macro skills is the most frequently used in the classroom, according to your own experience? Okay. Well, it would be great if we were together in a physical room. Okay, right. I did a survey in my own country last year, and the most common answer was writing. And we are going to see why today. Good. Well, are you helping your students to develop 21st century competencies? This is the question of the 21st century, precisely. Because remember that we are in a period of transformation in education, and new pedagogical tendencies are appearing, and new active methodologies are being implemented. And of course, that in this period of transformation, we are also involved in the teaching of English, not only because it has become a lingua franca, but also because we need active methodologies in order to keep the students working all the time. They need action, they need movement. Okay, what are these competencies? They are called the 5 C's. Cooperation. Cooperative work is crucial, and it is not something that is present normally in our classes. But we should remember that learning is a social act. First, we learn together, and then we gain autonomy gradually when we become more confident. Then we should help our students to develop critical thinking and creative thinking, and also control of emotions. Today, more than ever, because of the type of classes we are having at the moment, we need to create a special atmosphere. The one that is created in the physical classroom is not possible to be created right now. But of course, we are trying hard because we are speaking to students who are in front of us, and they are on the screen. So this rapport that is created normally when we are together cannot be created. Anyway, in the usual classroom, a pleasant atmosphere should be present in order that the students will be invited to become part of this pleasant atmosphere, and learning may take place in this way effectively. And of course, communication, students need to develop communication skills. But as we are teachers of English, we need to concentrate on this competence, communication. So let's see what communication is. Communication is a two-way street, and it has two main components: speaking and listening. And speaking and listening are part of pronunciation. Usually, when we ask what pronunciation is, normally the answer is sounds. But it's not just sounds; it's more than that. Normally, it is not considered as being speaking and listening together, but because when we communicate, we need an interlocutor, and when we are exchanging information, we are speaking and listening all the time, and this is pronunciation. Okay, what are the components of speaking? Speaking, when we produce this, there are words. This is the verbal language, but at the same time, the words are not produced in isolation. There are other extra elements, the non-verbal language, which enhance the meaning of what is being said. And when we are listening, these elements are present because we are listening to the words. This means that we need to decode the meaning of what is expressed in the message, but at the same time, we need to interpret the non-verbal communication that is present, the paralinguistic cues, that is to say, the tone of voice, body language, and in this way, I can understand the message. I'm going to give you an example. Suppose that you ask me the question, who came a minute ago? And I say, the boss. So my facial expression and my tone of voice, both of them are indicating that I'm happy that he came. So the same question, and I say, the boss. So I have changed my tone of voice, and my facial expression is completely different. So I'm changing the meaning also completely. Now, the same question, and I say, oh, the boss. So I'm afraid of him, you know. Well, so this information is crucial because if you pay attention to the answer, the boss is constant. But I've changed the meaning according to the intonation and the tone of voice I have used. So this information is not normally included when we are teaching English to our students. Today, it is crucial. It has always been crucial, but I don't know why it is not normally included in the teaching. So, if we pay attention to what we do when we are communicating meanings, studies indicate that 55% of what we say is communicated through body language. 38% is communicated by the tone of voice and intonation, and only 7% is provided by the words. So when we are speaking, we have to pay attention not to the words, not to what we say, but how we say things. And this is very, very important, the way things or way messages are communicated. Now, when we, today, English is an international language, and it is used for purposes of communication. And the first thing we notice when we communicate with people is their accents. This means that I have to use my own accent, and now I need to understand the accent of that person I'm speaking with. This means that I need to sharpen my ears in order to understand what is being said. I always say that when we are listening, we need to listen not only using our ears, we should use our eyes, because we need to watch what type of facial expressions the speaker is using in order to interpret what he means by saying or by using a particular set of words in his message. So you see how important is this paralinguistic information in our messages. Well, and what is accent? Accent is the particular way we speak, which reveals background information. It may be, this background information may be regional, geographical, or social. Accent is very important because it is our verbal signature. It is part of our identity. That's why it cannot be learned. Sometimes we are offered courses which tell us that we were able to speak like native speakers, but this is a complete lie. We will never be able to speak like native speakers because simply we were not born in England. We are not English people. So the same happens when these courses tell us that we will be able to reduce our accent if we take up their courses. This is another lie. The accent cannot be modified. What we may do is to improve our pronunciation in order to sound better, and in this way we are more intelligible and we are understood. If you Google accent, you will find that it is possible to reduce it, but according to studies, it cannot be reduced. What you do is to improve your pronunciation. And we cannot say that one accent is better than another, and we should be proud of our accent. For example, in my case, I speak Spanish English, but within Spanish, it is Argentinian Spanish, Argentinian English. And within my country, my speech is restricted to the River Plate area. Well, in this case, when we listen to people using different accents, what I need to know is to tune my ears to this variety of accents and recognize that there are accents. That's why when teachers asked the first question, what accent should I teach? What would you say? English accent or my own accent? What would you say? Well, I cannot see any answer. So, I'll give you the answer. Of course, we should choose our own accent. I have said that it cannot be learned. So what we need to say to our students is that there are varieties of English, and they will be exposed to these varieties so that they will come familiar with some of them, not with all of them, but for example, they will be able to recognize, for example, French English, German English, Russian English, Japanese English, some of them, to see that this variety is present, and this is the reality of English today. What about RP? Today, RP is considered a model. RP belongs to the past. It is no longer used. And we cannot ask our students to speak like native speakers. Even in the international exams, in the instructions that the students are given, remember that it used to say you're supposed to speak like a native speaker. Well, this has been changed. So now you're supposed to speak intelligibly and fluently, not like a native speakers, because we will never speak like them. in the case of this, of course that we need some reference. Today, English is used around the world, so we haven't got the model, but we can choose models, especially for beginner students. They need good English. And the one we can use is Southeastern English. Or for example, today, a foreigner who has a very good English may be used as an example. Why not? And this is something that is said by phoneticians. For example, Lindsay and Adrian Underhill and others. So there is no need to have an English speaker. If the pronunciation is intelligible and fluent, no problem. He may be used as a model. Gradually, as the students gain more confidence and become more familiar with the language, they will be able to listen to different varieties, and in this way, they will have the chance to sharpen their ears. But of course, we have students that sometimes they want to speak like native speakers and they insist on this. Well, what we can do is to give them strategies so as to improve their language. But sometimes the strategies that we may give them are not enough. So what they need is a speech coach and an intensive course so as to speak like a native speaker. Of course, that pronunciation will be near to a native speaker way. Okay. What is the best pronunciation target? Well, we are supposed to help our students to communicate effectively with speakers around the world. We are not preparing to speak like native speakers. Remember this. This belongs to the past. And should the students keep their own accent? Of course. We are using our own accent, and we cannot tell them to change it. But we have been saying this for ages. You are supposed to speak like native speakers, and this is repeated at every level. Well, this should be forgotten, and we should be proud of our accent. It is like this, because as I said before, it is part of our identity. It cannot be eradicated. It cannot be eliminated. It has to be accepted. And what we need to do today is to recognize that there is a variety of accents moving around the world. Now, how can I show this change? How can this be represented? Well, I use the prism metaphor by Mark Hancock. Well, this beam of light represents English before it became a lingua franca. So at that time, it was a monolithic uniform model. And all the people using this language used it in the same way. They were able to understand and be understood using the same type of rules. As the beam of light passes through the prism, the light separates into a rainbow of colors. These colors represent the different varieties we have today. So in this case, there is an asymmetry between productive and receptive pronunciation. And before it became, it was a uniform model, everybody was able to understand and be understood. This is what happens when we share the same accent. For example, here in Argentina, teachers can understand perfectly well because we share the same accent. The same happens in Peru. All right, but when we are having a conversation with people from different countries, well, we need to pay more attention in order to understand and be understood. Well, I insist that no accent is better than another. We need to recognize that this variety exists. and the students should be told about these varieties. And we should insist that their accent is correct. What can be improved is pronunciation. And this is very, very important. Well, accent and intelligibility are completely different. But we should bear in mind that an accent that is intelligible is understood. When your accent is not intelligible, there are breakdowns in communication and you are not understood. What is intelligibility? Intelligibility is concerned with clear speech. Speaking is pointless if we are not understood. And when we communicate with another person, we hope that we will be understood. Intelligibility is the most important goal in spoken language development in both speaking and listening. If I'm having a conversation with a person whose accent is not clear, I won't be able to understand. I won't be able to understand the meaning of the words that are being used, and the paralinguistic information won't be clear either, because I cannot connect the linguistic and the paralinguistic information that the speaker is giving me. Normally, there is a relation between the words that I'm using in my message and the paralinguistic that I'm producing in order to reinforce the meaning of those words. Intelligibility is the technical term of understandability. Well, now that English is used as an international language, we establish a new perspective and we set new pronunciation goals with priorities which are fewer in number and more realistic. Today we have more realistic goals, and this is great because we can teach English in a simpler way. And when we speak about accent, pronunciation mistakes are more important than grammar. Normally, in our classrooms, we pay more attention to grammar and we forget about pronunciation. And pronunciation is usually corrected in individual words, never in the flow of speech, but usually not in connected speech. And you know that a word produced in isolation may be affected in connected speech. So now that pronunciation mistakes may bring about a change in meaning or misunderstanding directly, we should focus on pronunciation. Pronunciation has not given a systematic place in the teaching of English. It is called the Cinderella of teaching. It is together with the rest, as if it were a process of osmosis. I think that pronunciation is present in every skill that we are using in the classroom. And now that English has become an international language with this variety of accents, pronunciation is central and very important. Now, in order to understand people now who are having different accents, we need two strategies. But these two strategies that I'm going to present now are not new. These two are called accommodations. An accommodation is a sort of adjustment that we make in order to understand and be understood. This has also been done before. This was done before English became a lingua franca. For example, there are two types: the productive phonological accommodation and the receptive. The productive accommodation is made by the speaker. And this is what we do, for example, when we speak more slowly and our articulation is more careful in order to be understood. And the receptive accommodation is when the listener tries to understand the meaning of the words, and at the same time, he tries to decipher the intention of the speaker. What does he want by saying this? Normally we say that listening is a passive skill. No, it is very active because we are trying to decode meaning. Well, sometimes, in spite of the fact we are using these strategies of accommodation, we cannot communicate. There are breakdowns in communication. So what do? Well, I have another type of a strategy, and it is negotiation. Negotiation is always present when we're speaking. Even in our mother tongue, we are permanently negotiating meanings. Why? Because we need to understand and be understood permanently. And when this understanding is not taking place, what do? There are certain speech devices, for example, such as asking for further information, for repetition, for reformulation, for paraphrasing, etc. All these types of activities should be done in the classroom. The students should have activities in which this type of strategies should be present. The thing is that normally the speaking skill is not given much time in the classroom because still we are having teacher-centered classes, and gradually I think that we should become facilitators, monitors in our classrooms so that the students will feel free to use the language. I always say that the language should become a laboratory where the students experiment with language, because the only way of learning something is when we have direct experience on what we are learning. I always say that a content knowledge that is not applied is not learned. Well, in order to be able to teach this new type of English, remember that now we have priorities which are fewer in number, and they are more realistic. And these pronunciation features were developed by Jennifer Jenkins. And let me tell you something about this before giving you more details. Well, we all know that English started this process of becoming a lingua franca in the last century. But in the late 90s, language researchers, speech authors, and teacher trainers were wearing away at the unchallenged assumption that learners should follow a particular model when learning English. While at that time, many speakers were communicating using a variety of accents. So the question was, why insisting on one particular model? We are in the 21st century and we're still having this type of model. That's why we need to change. And I think that we start changing and considering these different possibilities, we will enjoy our classes much better. Well, in the year 2000, Jennifer Jenkins made this explicit in the book she published, The Phonology of English as an International Language. And after the publication, she started collecting data, and she focused on different types of interactions. And after a time, she presented a set of pronunciation features, which she called Lingua Franca Core. She considered that if these features were followed, intelligibility between speakers whose mother tongue was not English, of course, intelligibility was not threatened. Well, what are these features? The sounds of English. The students need to know how the sounds are produced. This is something we do at the moment we're doing this. The system is taught in the same way, remember, because the students need to know about the system of English, how the language works. They need to know about the grammar, vocabulary, syntax, and also the pronunciation of sounds. Then stress, word and sentence stress. Then nuclear stress. In English, we have one characteristic that is not present in Spanish, and it is that English speakers tend to highlight words, that is to say, to concentrate on those words which carry meaning. This is something that we are not used to producing, and it's not a feature of Spanish, so it's difficult for us. But I think that if we start doing this from the very beginning, when we start with children, because I have done it, everything I'm telling to you today is based on my own experience. So this means that everything I'm saying to you is something that I'm using, and it is a proof that you can also do what I have selected for my own student. What I have added in this set is flow of speech, because when Jennifer Jenkins presented this set of features, later researchers included or made some changes in these features that she presented. And today we have the possibility, those teachers who are already teaching English as a lingua franca, the possibility of adapting these features according to the type of students we are having at the moment. Well, I have added flow of speech. The flow of speech is important because another characteristic of English is that speech is divided into chunks, into segments. We do not speak in individual words. We speak in chunks, in segments, tone units. These are the names that we use to refer to these pieces of speech that we use. What for? In order to highlight those words which are important for me to convey meaning to my interlocutor. In this way, the listener concentrates on those words which are important, and the rest are forgotten. Why? Because the words that are forgotten are the ones that are used for linking the main ideas, or they have already been presented in the conversation we have been having. They are predictable. They were mentioned before. Okay, now what are the basics of connected speech? Well, from the very beginning, students need to know that there are two types of words: content and structure words. And content or meaningful words are the ones that are important. For example, I work with children who are 9 or 10 years old, and I say, what is your name? What is your name? Tell me which words are important there. And they say, what a name. Okay. Is there any sugar in the bowl? Which words are important there? Is there any sugar in the bowl? Is there any sugar in the bowl? So immediately they detect that sugar and bowl are important. So if we start like this, they will be able to focus on those words which are important, and they save time. And understanding is much quicker in this way. That's why the students fail when they have a listening activity, because you know that listening is evaluated, but it's not taught. Students are not usually given the strategies that are necessary in order to understand and be understood. When they have a listening activity, because the type of evaluation is always the same, they are given some recorded material, and then they have some activities on a sheet of paper. And what do the students normally do? They try to listen to every single word and try to have a look at the questions that are on the paper to see if they can catch some information. And that's not the way. If they knew the listening strategies, they would be able to understand much better what is being said. So if we start to reorganizing the importance of the skill, I think that they will be able to understand much better how the language works. So another important thing is that they need to know the difference between English rhythm and Spanish rhythm. They work differently. There is no need to teach our students to sound like native speakers. Remember that? We should forget about this. This musicality that is characteristic of the English people is something that we will never be able to produce. Why? Because we have our own accent. So we forget about this. And I think that it is an idealization. It may appear in the books, but if you listen to native speakers, this musicality is not as strong as it appears when we listen to recording material, especially those which are modified a bit for lower levels. Well, when we speak about rhythm, we need to concentrate on the function of rhythm. Rhythm is related to stress. So which words are stressed and which words are not stressed? The ones that are stressed are the ones that are important, and the rest are not, because they do not convey any meaning. For example, I want to buy a book. I want to buy a book. Which words are important there? Want, buy, a book. But depending on the speaker's intention, only one may be the most important one, probably book. I want to buy a book, not a magazine, for example. So everything depends on the context. But the students need to know that in Spanish, we have this type of speak. It is a syllable time. Yo digo, ayer leí un libro interesante. Ayer leí un libro interesante. Keep it in your mind. Ayer leí un libro interesante. Yesterday, I read an interesting book. 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 So this is the musicality, but the musicality, forget about it. What is important is how we stress which words are important. Then appropriate word grouping and focus on word selection. So this is chunking, how we divide the sequences in order to understand and be understood. If I produce a very long sequence, it is difficult for my interlocutor to interpret what is being said. That's why these chunks are produced. And I cannot say, I'm going to give you a short sequence. I cannot say, put it on the table. No, put it on the table like that. So that each chunk should contain a meaningful sequence. Otherwise, understanding is not present. Well, and remember that rhythm and intonation are meaning processors. We have said that these two elements, the paralinguistic information, as I said before, is not part of the teaching. And rhythm and intonation are usually treated as the untouchables. And untouchable does not mean unlearnable. If we present rhythm and intonation in a simple way, you will see that the students, even young children, will be able to understand this perfectly well. The thing is that even at the teacher training college, this information remains in the theoretical world, and the students, when they practice this type of information, is restricted to examples. So what they need is real life situations in which this type of information is present, and the students may realize the function that rhythm and intonation have as meaning processors. Otherwise, they study this information in a theoretical way, and this is forgotten, and no attention is given when they start teaching with their own students. Well, why are they meaning processors of spoken English? So remember, rhythm is related to stress, which words are important. Sometimes, depending on the meaning, I insist, which are the important words? The content, the ones that contain information, the ones that are meaningful, that have meaning. Sometimes, depending on the meaning I want to express, I may highlight a structure word. For example, I want to go, not my brother. So there, I is not normally stressed because it is a structure word. But in this particular sequence, depending on the context and on the conversation we are having, it is highlighted because it is conveying meaning. So it is not, this word is not stressed, but it is accented. Stress belongs to the language, and the speaker cannot change that. Accent belongs to the speaker. I decide as a speaker which word is meaningful. I want to buy a book. What did you think? That I wanted to sell it? No, you're wrong. You see, that's the way it works. That's why students need to practice this in real life situations in the classroom. And for this reason, I use drama. I think the drama is the best tool for learning creatively, because drama means movement, means action. And when the students are interacting in real life situations, they have the opportunity to experience all this information and to experiment with language, and at the same time they are checking if what they have learned really is working. So it's great, really. Well, so in this way, both of them become information organizers, because, as I said before, we divide the sequence into chunks. We select which words are stressed. From those stressed words, I select the most meaningful one, and in this way, my interlocutor will understand immediately. That's why they are key components for effective communication. We shouldn't forget this. And I hope that, of course, that you should start small, but gradually, as you see the results that you get from your students, you will really amazed. You will be really surprised to see how the students are improving. Normally I give this type of courses to students who are sitting for international examinations. And this information is not given. And when we finish the course, normally they may last for a month or 2 months. And when they finish, they have an evaluation sheet. And normally what they say is, why is this information not included in our learning? It should be, because they have a different perspective of how the language is learned. So it is very important. Now, what are the strategies for effective communication? If I'm teaching a new way of presenting the language, because now it is used internationally, it should be taught accordingly. And I place the emphasis on this. Remember that the priorities are fewer and they are more authentic. We are using real life situations. Of course, we should present the students real everyday language. Normally, the type of language that is used in the classroom is academic. And when we are in the street, we need to use everyday language. And remember that normally we are correcting our students permanently, especially their grammar. But when they are in the street, mistakes, the word mistake and wrong are not present. They are trying to communicate in the best way they can. And if they commit mistakes, well, it doesn't matter if what I'm saying is understood. The thing is that the more they know about the system, the better they will be able to communicate and to avoid breakdowns in communication. But of course, if we provide them with real life situations, they will be able to practice and gain more confidence in the classroom. That's why, again, drama techniques are great for this purpose. Well, of course, that colloquial registers should be used. For example, social language, the language used in media, the language that we may find with any person in the street. The focus should be on meaning, not on form. Remember that if we commit a grammar mistake, it's not important, because communication takes place. And I'm going to give you an example. If I say, I don't want nothing, thank you. Do you understand? Yes, you understand. You immediately detect that I have made a mistake in grammar, but you understand all the same. But if I say, Now, I want about arrest. What? I want about arrest. Sorry, I can't understand. Arrest. This arrest. Party. Shop. Oh, now I understand. You want a dress for the party. You want to buy a dress. Yes, that. Okay, communication has taken place. So you see, if we are having problems in pronunciation, we need some negotiation. Sometimes in spite of negotiation, we may have communication that does not take place. Well, this shows that a grammar mistake is not important if meaning is present. Fluency is more important than accuracy now. Accuracy is important, but we shouldn't make our students victims of accuracy. Normally, accuracy is the element in the classroom because we tend to correct mistakes immediately after they are committed. And we do not concentrate on fluency as we do on accuracy. Accuracy should become more flexible because grammar for our students is very hard. It is a great pleasure for them to speak accurately, to speak without mistakes. So if we pay more attention to their fluency than to their accuracy, probably it will be much better for them and they will be able to participate, because normally they are shy and they prefer to remain silent so as not to commit mistakes. And this is our mistake. Okay, the importance should be on language use, not language usage, because language use reveals the communicative value of what we are saying. What is the intention of the speaker? This is very important. If I don't know his intention, I won't be able to communicate effectively with that person. So the students need training on this. Oral skills should be present in the classroom. We have said that normally speaking is not given the necessary time in the classroom. And besides, the type of oral work that we use is restricted to answer questions, and students are more accustomed to answering than asking questions. Normally the questions are made by the teacher. And remember that now repeating a summary by heart is no longer useful, because they are repeating structures like a parrot. What we need is to test if what they have learned are applied, all the new structures they have learned can be applied effectively in a real life conversation. What we need is real experience. So repetition, like a parrot, belongs to the past. It's no longer useful. Okay, so students need more oral skills. For this, we need more group and pair work. Interactions are necessary. Group work, and they should be organized in teams so that they may prepare an activity in which they are given time to organize their ideas. We should give them the opportunity to be creative, to try the language. I have said that a classroom should become a laboratory where they experiment with language, and there is a lot of trial and error. And when I always say that there are two types of noises in the classroom. The noise when the students are bored and they are not interested in what we are saying, and the other type of noise that is productive when the students are working together and there is a murmur moving around because they are thinking, how organizing their ideas for the following activity. So this type of noise is the one that should be present in our classroom. That's why we should encourage our students to work cooperatively. When we work cooperatively, there are two stages. First of all, I have said that we need other people. I cannot learn in isolation. When students work together, there is an interpsychological stage in which the students share information, they share styles of learning, they share information, and they enrich one another. Gradually, they get to the second stage, in which it is an intrapersonal stage when he starts gaining autonomy, and that support that was created with all the students when they were together is no longer necessary, and they become autonomous. Remember that one of our aims is to help them become autonomous, to be able to use the strategies that they have been working with their peers, for example, to solve a problem individually using those strategies that he used to share with his peers when they were working together. So when we see that they are able to be independent, autonomous, well, we feel that one of our goals has been fulfilled. Well, today we are still having a problem. All of the tests, or most of the tests, are written tests. And we do not want perfect writers or perfect speakers. What we need is effective communicators, effective communicators. The thing is that the teaching of English is conducted through the written form, and oral tests are not as frequent as they should be, because if students are learning the language at an institute or at school, what is the reason? Well, they want to use it in order to be able to communicate with others using the same language, or to communicate with English people. But if we evaluate their knowledge only through written tests, what we are doing is evaluating grammar, just grammar. So again, we are placing emphasis on accuracy. Let them commit mistakes. Commit mistakes are part of the process. It is an opportunity to grow. It is an opportunity to experiment with language. That's why we need tolerance for errors. We have said that when we create this classroom in which they are experimenting with language, error is moving around permanently, and errors in general are welcome. We do not learn something immediately. We need repetition, we need practice, and we need mistakes. Mistakes are part of the process. And when students are afraid of mistakes, they are afraid of trying something new. They are afraid of thinking in a different way. They are afraid of being creative. And in this way, if we punish mistakes, this does not mean that their learning is improving. On the contrary, this makes them get frustrated. So mistakes should not be punished. On the contrary, they are welcome. And I think that what we need to do is to devote some time to mistakes in the classroom and to work cooperatively, because many mistakes the students commit are common. They commit the same type of mistakes. So if we get together and we devote this precious time to treat mistakes, they analyze the types of mistakes they are having, they give further examples, and they try the language again. In this way, they will be able to improve because they are experimenting with language. And in this way, they are learning from their own mistakes. Mistakes are didactic. Why? Because they teach students. They are constructive because they help students to learn better. And they are also creative because sometimes when the students are trying to find the problem of the mistakes they are having, they discover other places, unknown places, in which they find creative elements. Because remember that something should be creative. When they have to tell a story, for example, creative elements should be present. They should be as creative as possible. We have to unleash their imagination so that they are able to express their own ideas using their creativity, taking into consideration the linguistic background they have been learning through time. And when you see your students working in this way, imagine how you can feel. It is something that is really precious too. Well, focus on essential features. Now we need to distinguish between which features are important and which are not to save time. The essential features are the one we have mentioned. Students need to know the system of sounds. They need to know the difference in consonants and in vowels. And remember that even among English speakers, the difference in length, for example, that we insist on this, the E and E sound, there are varieties of length too when we speak about native speakers. So we should not worry too much about length, because sometimes we exaggerate that and it is no longer natural. Sorry, let me have some water. Well, what are superficial features? They are the ones that are not important. For example, weak forms. If I say, or a student says, I saw some people in the street. I saw some people with the O sound in pot. Normally, we have insisted, and we still insist on syllabicity, for example. No, it's people with syllabicity. Come on, poor people. Well, if you listen to native speakers, nowadays there is a tendency to insert the schwa, so that they say people with a schwa. Today, these are in free variation, so that the students may select which to use. Of course, that if they say people, well, we will try to improve their pronunciation so as not to sound so harsh. But anyway, weak forms are not so important as they used to be, because accuracy, remember when we learned English following the RP model, accuracy was always present. What is not essential? What is superficial besides weak forms? Well, phonetic processes, assimilation, vowel reduction. For example, vowel reduction, of course, according to the level of the students, for example, they may listen to recorded material. Why is this speaker saying our room? What does that mean? Well, this is the case of vowel reduction. So for receptive purposes, they may get the students may get some information, especially adults. Adults are very curious, they are very analytic, and they are always asking for further information. So we may give this information to them. But with children, if you are used to saying our room, they will say our room, like that. If they listen to recorded material, this form, they will learn it like that, and this form will be kept. But of course, with higher levels, it is optional. I can say our using this form or vowel reduction. So for this reason, it is superficial, not essential. For example, in the case of, did you come yesterday? Did you? I can say did you using coalescence. This is another phonetic process. So it is in free variation also, because the speaker may choose which to use. So I may use as a teacher did you, and the student may listen to this form, and he may be curious about this form because probably he's more familiar with did you. Okay, you may go on using did you, why not, if you are understood. And besides, both of them are correct. Okay, well, so the essential features, as you have seen, are just a few. And of course, we should insist on developing productive and receptive. Remember that listening is not taught in the way it should be. Receptive skills means listening, but taking into consideration all the strategies that are necessary in order to understand and be understood. Remember that I have two functions, two stages to be performed when I'm listening. First of all, I need to decode the meaning. This is one stage. To understand the words that have been used in the message in order to understand it. But at the same time, I need to pay attention to the paralinguistic information. That's why watching is important while we are listening. Why? I need to understand the intention of the speaker through this paralinguistic information. And remember that paralinguistic information is much more important than the words themselves. Remember, 55% is provided by body language. Okay, well, and remember that in the case of the type of activities, just some minutes ago, I said, well, one kind of activity is usually the one present in the classroom, and it is material recorded. There are different types of activities that can be used in order to sharpen our students' ears. So you can consult books related to this, or if you Google listening activities, you will have lots of activities. Well, if we want our students to communicate effectively, what we need them to develop is intelligibility. Intelligibility is the ability to understand and be understood. Remember that an accent should be intelligible. If it is not intelligible, it is not understood. So intelligibility, remember, is the aim in order to avoid breakdowns in communication. Another important skill is comprehensibility. It is the ability to understand what is being said. That is to say, the words, the meaning of the words used in the message. And then interpretability, that is to say, the ability to understand the speaker's intention. What does he mean by this? So these are three skills that are performed simultaneously while we are interacting with another person. That's why they should be developed. The more the better, all right? Well, what are the teaching techniques that we may use in order to improve the quality of communication in our students? Well, I have said that I use drama. I love drama. It is my inseparable friend. I have been using drama techniques together with ludic techniques also. They are great because the students have direct participation. They become central in the process of learning. And besides, drama has a holistic approach. It considers the individual as a whole with body, mind, and emotions. This means that when we are using a drama activity, the students are using their minds, their bodies, and emotions. Emotions should be present. Piaget says that one of our responsibilities is to help our students to love what they learn. If we want them to love what they learn, we need to show them our passion for teaching. We cannot teach students when they are not emotionally prepared. If we say, well, okay, now let's start, and they are not ready, my teaching won't be successful. They need to be intrinsically motivated, and it is my responsibility to create a special atmosphere so as to get their curiosity. Normally in a classroom, an element of surprise should be present. Neuroscience has given us a lot of information, and one of them, which is very important, is that students do not learn by repeating something by heart or doing the same again and again, that is to say, drilling and repetition. They learn when they are motivated and when they are emotionally involved in what they are learning. So this is what we do when we are doing a drama activity. Besides, with drama, we use multisensory learning. This means that all the senses are alert, and the students have the possibility of understanding content knowledge depending on the channels he prefers. We have auditory learners, we have visual learners. So this is important to be taken into account because multisensory learning is very useful with those students who may have attention or learning problems, and for students with special needs. Today, with the type of classroom, with the diversity classroom that we are having at the moment, drama is really a powerful tool. It is also a powerful tool because it helps us develop soft skills and emotional intelligence. Why? Because as it uses a holistic approach, emotions are always present. And we need to create an emotional bond with our students. Sometimes, if this bond is not created, we fail. And the students are not prepared for learning. We need to create a special atmosphere which invites learners to become part of the activities and to enjoy what they are doing. Well, for this reason, we cannot say, sit down and pay attention. I used to be told this when I was a student. Well, of course that this is disappearing, because if I start my class saying this, okay, sit down and pay attention and open your book on page, well, demotivation is instantly present. And besides, attention is not asked, is gained. It is my responsibility to open my students' mind so that their attention is ready. Their brains should be alert. They should be prepared to the process of learning. If we get prepared for any social event, for example, or when we go to the gym, we need some physical preparation before starting. Why not preparing our students for this important process of learning? So this is also another piece of information that should be taken into account when we are using these teaching techniques. And these 3 E's should always be part of our classes. Energy. If energy is not present in our students, this means that they are not engaged. That's why the elements of surprise is so important. Just if I leave during the break, before the class starts, I leave on the desk, I leave an object, I leave a piece of paper, or a sign on the board, and I leave. I'll be back in a minute, don't worry. So curiosity is already present because the students want to know why this object is on the desk or why this sign is on the door or on the board. You see? Well, the elements of surprise are very important because when I start my class, they are already ready. They are willing to start the class because they want to know what it is about. And that element I have used becomes part of my class. And they are engaged, as simple as that. Then enthusiasm, of course. For this, I need motivation. But if I want them to be enthusiastic, well, I need to select activities that I know that will attract their attention. The thing is that sometimes I plan my classes and I think that I have selected wonderful activities, but when I start using them, I realize that they are not working in the way I expected. And I cannot blame our students. So I need to reflect on the selection I've made, because they are not working in the way I thought. And then I think that I may use this with another group. This is something we normally do. I prepare the same type of activity or the same test for first year A and first year B. And sometimes we see that my activities have worked perfectly well with one group, but not with the other. What we need to do is to prepare activities according to the type of students we are having at the moment, the group of students we are having in first year A. It is important to know their potential, their interests. If I know the type of intelligences they have, we will be able to work much better. If a group may be quicker from the point of view of learning than others, so the type of activities should be changed. And then empathy. When a teacher is empathetic, he's a good communicator, he's a good listener, and it is very important to listen to our students, because sometimes they are communicating meanings without saying words. And their feedback is very important because it may help us to improve our own teaching. I think that they are good judges, because whenever our principals come to our classes to observe what we are doing, once a month or twice a year, I think that I don't think they can get a good picture of what we do in our classes. But our children, if we ask our children, they will be able to tell us what we do every day, and they know perfectly well those teachers who are active and those teachers who are not as active as the others. Today we are in a process of transformation in education, so there are teachers who still prefer the traditional model, and the innovation is slightly introduced, and there are teachers who are already using different types of innovation, and the students are always on the move, so they can choose. Okay, and finally, I think that the instrument for this type of classes is metacognition. Metacognition should be practiced with our colleagues. We need to reflect on our own practices, and we need to work together. Remember that individual work is not successful, it's not fruitful. We need to get together and exchange information. And this type of metacognitive strategies should be given to our students, because they need to reflect on their own learning. Remember that we want them to be autonomous. So if they can discover their own weaknesses and strengths, they will be able to go on improving. That's why when we give time to treat mistakes in our classes, I think that metacognition is always in the air. When they start learning from the very beginning, how much do you think you have learned? Do you think that you are able to do this? Do you think that you are able to do that? Well, to have a conversation with our students and to treat their weaknesses together, because gradually he will be able to, in general, all the students will be able to gain or to discover new strategies provided by the teacher that they will be useful when they are independent, where they no longer have the necessity to work together with their peers. And when they work together, when they have a special type of work, they know what to do, because they can work together with their peers and independently. Okay, well, what type of activities should we do to our students? Well, normally, I never start my class without a preparation. I think, as I said before, that I need to create a special atmosphere. If this atmosphere is not created, I cannot start. of course, the students are the first to tell you about it. Okay, what are the warm-ups that I normally use? It depends on the level. I use with all levels, even with trainee teachers. They do these activities and they learn them so that they will be able to use them after they graduate and they have their own students. Well, breathing is essential, especially with adults. But for children, it may be boring. So I prefer some physical stretches. For example, early in the morning, what they like is stretching. Okay, raise your hands like this, and you may yawn, and they feel really good because they can yawn in the classroom. Oh, how great. And then we move our bodies and we move our legs and we walk around the classroom, and they get activated and ready for the process of learning. And when this physical preparation is not present, they ask for it. So this means that it is good for them. Another type of activity is mouth gym, some workout, so as to prepare the articulators. Some massage, some activities in which the articulators get ready for pronunciation. All levels like brain coordination and brain activation. For example, when we use different movements with our hands. For example, this one. Well, it cannot be seen. Well, imagine that if you look for brain coordination, you will have lots of examples. And of course, that normally I devote 5, 8, no more than 10 minutes on this. And after these activities, the students are ready to start the class. Why? Because we have been able to create this pleasant atmosphere because they know that they can move, they can walk around the classroom. They should not remain seated till the bell rings. No, because they know that we are going to devote the time to doing activities in which they will enjoy using the language. And they know that they will be experimenting and that mistakes are welcome. I think that if you have this type of activities, you will be able to enjoy your classes, and teaching and learning, both of them become a magical adventure. I always say that a teacher should be a discoverer of talents, because we need to know the potential of our students. Our students at the same time are explorers of knowledge. If we are able to have these two types of people in the classroom, I think that we will be very successful and we will enjoy our classes completely. So I think that now we can start the questions if you think, Mariela, it is suitable.
Yes, Miss Patricia. Hi.
Oh,
Thank
Kevin,
you so
hi.
much. Yes, thank you so much for your valuable participation. Yes, of course. We have some questions here from some teachers. This is the first question from Miss Nicole, and she says, how can we reinforce the 5 recommendations in the virtual classes? I mean, the creative thinking,
Accommodation.
communication, critical thinking, cooperation, and control of emotions.
Well, all of them should be worked together, because normally, remember when I mentioned the 5 C's, of course, we are teaching the language, and we are not teaching history, we are not teaching science, but in every subject, these competencies should be taught. We are teaching communication. We are teaching our students to use a foreign language. But for example, in the activities we select, creativity and critical thinking may be present, even if we have little children. Little children may start giving their own opinions, because sometimes you get surprised the answers they give you when they ask their opinions. So the thing is that you need to try. Sometimes you may say, no, I don't think this will work. You try what you have thought because you need to experience. If you don't experience what you think may work, you will never know. So it is a challenge. And I think that the students will enjoy these activities. And working cooperative give them the possibility of committing mistakes and learning together, because sometimes they prefer to ask their own peers if they have a doubt, not the teacher, because they may be shy and they prefer not to ask the teacher because probably they have already asked the teacher for explanations. So the best way of learning is teaching. So when they work cooperatively, they do that, and that's great.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next question is for Miss Gina. It's a tough question. What to do when students don't like to speak in class? I mean, the virtual lessons.
They don't like speaking. Well, normally they are shy. The problem is, if we insist on accuracy, they will never speak. We need to make accuracy more flexible, because I'm going to give you an example. Normally, we can't avoid this, but we tend to correct the mistake immediately after it is committed. I'm going to dramatize, right? Well, I am the teacher and I say, tell me, Kevin, what did you do yesterday?
Oh.
And you, Kevin, you say, I'm going to answer. And I say, well, yesterday I went to the supermarket and I buy a chocolate. Buy, not buy, it is bought. Buy, bought, come on, repeat, buy, bought. The same as bring, bought, the same spelling, remember that, okay? Well, imagine, poor Kevin, you won't be able to go on speaking because your flow of thought has disappeared. So sometimes we can't avoid this, but we need to control ourselves, and the corrections can be different. If I become part of your conversation, and I'm going to repeat the same sequence differently. So you say, well, yesterday I went to the supermarket and I buy a chocolate. Oh, you bought a chocolate, how nice. And what else did you buy? And here I'm using highlighting. Remember that I told you that highlighting is good because I'm emphasizing what I want you to listen to and to concentrate on the most important word. So he goes on, Kevin goes on saying, well, I buy, you insist, I buy some cookies. Oh, you bought some cookies, yummy, yummy, great. Did you buy anything else? And then you say, Kevin, yes, I bought some Coke. Good. Because it is not that you are using, Kevin is not using buy, the past tense of buy for the first time. Probably he got confused, he was nervous, but he realized that the past tense was bought in this way. So there is no interruption. And then he can go on speaking because I became part of his conversation. I think that if we change the way we correct students, they will be able to participate more frequently and remember to use accurately in a flexible way. Remember, if we are having this same conversation in the street, he will be understood, and he won't say, no, the past tense of buy is bought. No, conversation goes on.
Oh, yes, true.
That's why we need real life situations.
Exactly. Yes, Miss. We have another question, but this is for Miss Erika Enrique, and she says, what can I do if the students say, please translate into Spanish?
Or translate. Well, there is no problem if there is sometimes. remember that in the past, some teachers, when RP was used, translation was forbidden. For example, trainee teachers delivering classes, special classes, well, they were supposed not to translate. But if translation is necessary, of course, we are not going to translate every single word, because remember, if we use the holistic approach of drama, we can show actions, for example, not abstract words, of course, that we need the translation. But for example, if we have a memo test, even abstract words may be related. So it depends on your creativity, what type of activities you select in order to avoid translation. But we may translate, not every single word, because imagine that this is tiring and the students won't get connected. And the idea is to make, to help them become engaged, to enjoy the class. And translation of every single word is not useful. I think that you need to find the activity in which they can discover the meaning without translation. It should be the last resource, of course. It is not forbidden, and it's just today.
Yeah, I think that's it's really important. First of all, the confidence of our students in order to
Of
speak or make ideas. Yeah, and be flexible with them. Yeah, it's so important, especially in English. I mean,
Of course.
right. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate a lot all your answers. So please stay with us. Don't leave. Don't leave, please, for a final pick. Next, let's continue with Teacher Kurt. He's going to present us our next speaker for tomorrow.
Hello there. Don't forget to join us tomorrow. We're gonna have the presence of Lenore Marin. She's gonna present the following topic: remote teaching, emotional impact on teachers' well-being. So let's watch a video about it, and after that, you're gonna receive the exit ticket. Thanks once again, Patricia.
Thank you.
Hi, a very good morning to everybody, and I'm delighted to participate in the webinar series organized by English Teachers Improve, and I am grateful to Mariela Condorena's invitation. I'm going to talk about something that I'm sure all teachers are experiencing, and that's why the title of my presentation is Remote Teaching: The Emotional Impact on Teachers' Well-Being. When we talk about well-being, most people associate well-being with money, income of money. However, it's not only that. We have different types of well-being, right? Now, something very important that I want to mention is that this presentation is based on a survey, on a research that I've been doing, and the sample that I have is 150 teachers from city schools surveys and 150 teachers from private schools surveys as well. And I guess that not only will we share the reality, okay, but also, and what's most important, we will see how we can get a positive, a good, a happy well-being. That's the objective of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Now, as you can see here, this is the exit ticket. All right, so please, in a few minutes, I'm gonna share with you. So take your time, please, in order to verify the code. You cannot see very well. Don't worry, don't worry. I will help you with that. Just give me a moment. Relax, please. Don't get stressed. Relax.
Please, Kevin,
Yes.
can you repeat the letters and numbers?
Yes, yes, of course. It's 3BO, all right, O capital letter, DEKM. KM capital letters too, all right? I'm going to say this in Spanish too. 3B, O, mayúscula, D, E, K de Kevin, y M de Mari, en mayúscula. Y ahora también voy, now I'm going to share with you here in Facebook, so don't worry, don't get stressed, Don't get stressed. One more time, don't forget, it's 45 minutes. 45 minutes.
Yeah, okay. On behalf of English teachers in Peru community, thank you for joining us today. And thank you so much, dear Patricia, for sharing your knowledge with us. And thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Vamos a culminar, como de costumbre, con todo el equipo.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias a todos por haber estado con nosotros el día de hoy. Querida Patricia, muchísimas gracias por haber aceptado nuestra invitación. Realmente ha sido bastante útil para nosotros, productiva. Hay muchas estrategias nuevas que has podido compartir con nosotros. Hay bastante información que de hecho para nuestra formación como docentes del área de inglés es importantísima saber y conocer. De hecho, estamos hablando ya de tiempos modernos, de una forma de enseñar diferente.
Totalmente.
Creo que definitivamente todos tus aportes son muy valiosos para todos nosotros. Querida Patricia, muchísimas, muchísimas gracias por el tiempo que has tomado para estar esta noche con nosotros.
No, realmente yo les agradezco a ustedes. Estamos viviendo un momento muy difícil y estamos muy solidarios. Y bueno, yo en realidad la agradecida soy yo que me diste la oportunidad de participar. Yo lo que comparto es mi experiencia. Me va tan bien con drama, tengo tantas satisfacciones con drama que no puedo no compartirlo porque yo quiero que todo el mundo use drama porque a mí me va bien. Y los chicos responden, y los grandes responden, y he estado trabajando online, y bueno, y es difícil trabajar drama online, pero lo he logrado con trainee teachers, y se puede, obviamente estamos sentadas, los grupos de alumnos somos sentados, pero no importa, el asunto es, lo que he trabajado online son las simulaciones, simulations, como no nos podíamos mover y they do not have the opportunity to share. ¿Hablan todos inglés acá?
Sí.
¿O no? Porque si no hablo español. No tenían la oportunidad de trabajar en grupos, como hacemos en la clase de física, era simulaciones. Bueno, entonces era una creatividad que iban sacando las cosas y se equivocaban, y no importa, porque después a mí me parece que el tiempo que le tenemos que dar nosotros al error es fantástico. Muchas veces nosotros devolvemos la prueba y le decimos al niño, traigan la filmada para mañana, y chao, se acabó. Yo tengo que dedicar una clase. Y me acuerdo, yo en otras capacitaciones que me decían profesores, no, pero yo no puedo perder una clase, yo tengo que terminar el programa. No, le digo, pensá en los chicos, no en el programa. Es más importante que el chico evacúe todas sus dudas para que vaya creciendo en el aprendizaje. Si vos le vas a poner otro conocimiento, otro contenido, cuando el anterior no lo tiene, porque hay una cosa que no dije hoy, hay tantas cosas que hubiera querido decir. El fracaso de ellos es mi fracaso. El éxito de ellos es mío también. Entonces, si ellos fracasan, es el mío. Hay veces que hay algo que a mí no me gusta. Acá en Argentina se usa decir, ponete las pilas. No sé si allá se usa.
Sí,
a mí me parece muy despectivo. Si a mí, como alumna, me dicen, a ver, Patricia, ponete las pilas. ¡Ay, yo me muero como alumna! Porque a veces somos hirientes y no lo queremos hacer. No nos damos cuenta, porque yo te digo, bueno, a ver, Mariela, ponete las pilas y estudiá. Y a lo mejor vos te has roto el alma. Y como no soy muy comunicativa, no tengo escucha activa con el alumno, no descubro, porque yo tengo que estudiar y descubrir al alumno, no descubro que pobre Mariela se mata estudiando, y yo digo, ponete las pilas, pobrecita, porque te quiero comer, porque descubro que sos una estudiante grandiosa. Entonces, eso es importante, que su fracaso es el de ellos. Y bueno, gracias, ¿qué les puedo decir? Gracias, yo feliz de estar acá, de poder compartirlo con ustedes.
Gracias a ti, aplausos de todo el equipo, de todo Perú, de todos los maestros peruanos que te han visto esta noche, y de hecho mexicanos, argentinos, bastantes colegas de otros países también, una gran audiencia. Muchísimas gracias.
Sí, no sé cuántos hubo, pero bueno, me alegro que ha habido.
Genial, ya te la voy a compartir ahorita. Muchísimas gracias, Patricia. Definitivamente espero que con estas actividades, con esta propuesta que nos traes, podamos manejar la confianza que debe tener el estudiante más en el aula para atreverse a hablar, para atreverse a demostrar sin miedo al error, ¿no? Que creo que esa es la clave de todo esto. Muchísimas gracias, Patricia. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Nos despedimos. Patricia Arbona,
gracias.
Laura, Miss Lidia, Miss Ángela Salazar, Kurt Hay, Miss Daisy Apolinario, Miss David Anaya, Miss Evelyn Pita, Teacher José Ortega. Muchísimas gracias una vez más, Patricia.
Muy y yo los felicito a ustedes por el trabajo que hacen. Maravilloso, maravilloso, maravilloso. Realmente un equipo de primera.
Gracias, querida Patricia. Muchas gracias. Buenas noches a todos.
Buenas noches.